What can one say about a man who was multifaceted in his talents? Not only was he a humane and caring physician, but also an artist par excellence, who used his gift to help others. A keen social worker and philanthropist who loved to travel and interact with people, who never lost his faith in God despite the tragedies he had to face. A wonderful husband and father, and a great granddad. Leslie J. Fernandez, the 12th of 13 children, was born on January the 8th, 1917. When he was barely 2 years old, the Spanish flu swept the country, taking away not only his mother, but also his twin brother and younger brother. Just 4 years later, his father too passed away, leaving him orphaned at the age of 6. He did his schooling at a boarding school in Yercaud, a small hill station in Tamil Nadu. Economic constraints put paid to any higher education, and he joined his late father's chemist shop, Leslie Gay and Company, in Hyderabad. But he soon left that and started his own tobacconist shop at Abbott's. It was during this time that his acquaintance with family friend Lourdes D'Souza blossomed and culminated in marriage in 1946. The following year, their first child, Celine, was born. Around that time, the house opposite their home in Bogolkunta was up for rent. Leslie had the foresight and strength to encourage his wife, who was working as a doctor in Nilafar Hospital, to open a small maternity hospital of her own. It was with great trepidation that the young couple embarked upon a project that neither had any experience of. And so, June 1948 saw the birth of Stock Home Clinic, a maternity hospital with 2 rooms and 2 beds. Being a hospital with only female employees, word soon spread in the Nizam-ruled Parda community of Hyderabad. And soon they were able to buy the adjoining property and expand to 22 beds. During this period, Leslie closed down his shop and took over the ever-increasing administration of the growing hospital. He was a man Friday, doing whatever needed to be done, from fixing a light to assisting his wife in surgery. This growth was not restricted to their professional lives. On the personal front too, there were many additions. By 1952, Lourdes and Leslie were the proud parents of 3 children. In 1953, Leslie encouraged his wife to go to Dublin, Ireland, to pursue further studies, while he looked after the hospital and the children. 10 months later, Lourdes was back with 2 diplomas in obstetrics and gynecology. His exposure to human suffering as well as his knowledge of drugs kindled in Leslie a desire to become a doctor. And so in 1956, at the age of 40, after his 4th child Patricia was born, Leslie enrolled in medical college while still continuing to shoulder the administrative responsibilities at the hospital. His hard work was rewarded when he graduated and could treat patients as a general practitioner. As a doctor, Leslie was truly blessed with a healing touch. He was lovingly called Baba by his patients, a name that stayed with him till the very end. In 1971, he had abdominal surgery and suffered an internal hemorrhage. He needed blood urgently and his condition was critical. All night long, the compound of the hospital was packed with patients queuing up to offer blood and dua. That combination was the miracle that restored Baba to his beloved patients. After that, Leslie felt that God had saved him for a purpose. He continued to attend to his patients, but with a difference. He stopped charging any fee and kept a collection box in his room where patients could put in what they wished. The entire amount collected was handed over to the sisters from the Home for the Aged, a custom that is carried on today by the neonatologists. His busy and dedicated work schedule did not stop Leslie from enjoying life in all its different hues. An excellent artist as a child, He now picked up his brushes after a gap of 20 years and went on to do some of his best work. During his travels in India and abroad, it was very common for him to stop en route and paint a scene that inspired him. Sociable by nature, Leslie was in his element at fancy dress balls and dances. It was in the 70s that he came into contact with Lionism and its ideals, and went on to become the Deputy District Governor of District 324C. The 70s also opened up a new dimension to his personality as grandfather. The first of his 9 grandchildren was born in 1972. The 80s brought Leslie into contact with 2 people, one whom he grew to love dearly and the other who gave him a renewed purpose in life. In 1981, his only son Michael married Elaine, a Scottish lass who adored her Indian family as much as they loved and admired her. He spent many memorable times with Elaine and his grandchildren in Scotland and in India. The other person who had a tremendous impact on Leslie was Dr. Luzito D'Souza, who started the Shanti Avedana Ashram, a hospice in Bombay that looks after terminally ill cancer patients. The hospice so moved and touched Leslie that he promised to raise funds for it. In 1991, he was found to have cancer of the lymph nodes, but that did not stop him from trying to fulfill his promise. In 1992, while undergoing chemotherapy, he held an exhibition and sale of his paintings, the proceedings of which he donated to Shanti Avedana. Thereafter, single-handedly, through the sale of his paintings and by convincing his friends and colleagues, he was instrumental in collecting and donating over ₹1 million to Shanti Avedana. In gratitude, one of the units of the ashram is called Dr. Leslie's Daycare Room, after its most generous benefactor. Ironically, the 80s was also the period when Leslie experienced his greatest sorrow. January 21st, 1985 was the day he lost his only son. That tragedy made him turn to another medium of expression, poetry. Through his poetry, he tried to relieve his pain and put down in words the anguish he felt. Reflecting his grief, even his painting took on a new depth and dimension. Leslie once again showed his foresight and faith when his daughter Evita, who had a bolder vision for the hospital, wanted to construct a new building over the existing one. With his blessing, the old structure was demolished and the new ultra-modern building we see today started. Though battling with cancer, Leslie, along with his wife Lourdes, was able to inaugurate the ground floor rooms of the new Fernandez Maternity Hospital a month before he died, and knew that his daughter's dream was on its way to being realized. The inauguration of the ground floor rooms in September 1995 was a special occasion for the family. For not only was Leslie able to participate in it, but also Elaine, who came down from Scotland to be with Leslie. Sadly, it was her last trip to India. October 16th, 1995 marked the end of a life well spent, a life devoted to the service of God and man. In the words of Dr. Luzito, Dr. Leslie was a man of many talents, but the most beautiful part of his life was that he used all his talent to the fullest measure.